Welcome to the Celtic Huddle podcast. I'm Mark Wilson, and today I'm joined by the Celtic legend, Murdo MacLeod. Also delighted to say we're joined by another legend. Hugh Keevins has joined us today, the doyen of football journalism, but he's even more famous for coming 48th in a Tom Selleck lookalike contest at Butlins in the year 1983. Hugh, welcome to the show.
It's very nice to be here, Mark, and nice to be beside my old pal Murdo.
Yes, well, Simon Donnelly and Frank McAvenny will be back with us soon, but there's no rush in that. To be honest, they can stay in the sidelines for a wee bit longer if they like. But a brand new podcast, and every week we'll take you behind the scenes and in depth on all things Celtic. And today, again, we're live, and we're joined by the former World Snooker champion, John Higgins. John will join us shortly. He's down south just now at the World Grand Prix. Just reading that, when it says former World Snooker champion, you know, always a World Snooker champion. Once you've won it,
there'll be a current.
Don't take it off, do they?
Current world
but it
champion.
sounds, I don't know, it just sounds a bit harsh. Anyway, John Higgins will be joining us shortly, so stay tuned for that. And I'm delighted to say, once again, the podcast is now sponsored by First Star Legends Gin, First Class Transfers, and Social Recluse. We thank them all for their support. Today, guys, we've got an absolute cracker for you. We'll go through the aftermath of yesterday's AGM, and we'll also speak about the Celtic Trust Supporters Group. Did the fans get the answers they were looking for? Did the board cover themselves in glory? Or overall, was it a whitewash with cliches and blah, blah, blah? We'll also speak about the big game this weekend and the Scottish Cup final on Sunday and the chances of securing that quadruple treble, which I think is went kind of forgotten about, if I'm honest. So, let's get into it. The AGM. Now, we've been chatting about it, Murdo, for a couple of weeks that this was coming up, and the lead up to it has been pretty frosty, to say the least. So it was going to be interesting to see how it turned out yesterday. Hugh, you're a man that's been there at Celtic AGMs throughout the years.
Yep.
What did you make of yesterday's? Was it a whitewash? Will there be a frustration from the fans? Was it scripted answers?
I think Celtic were perhaps fortunate yesterday that it wasn't the normal annual general meeting held in the Kerrydale suite, hundreds of shareholders being there. Then it can get feisty. Then people can look Peter Lawwell in the eye or Neil Lennon in the eye, Ian Bankier. But doing it by Zoom call, the picture's wonky, the sound's awful, people get disconnected. It's just not the same impact. I thought that Celtic yesterday did what they were always going to do under the circumstances. They were going to reaffirm their position. Peter Lawwell, with the memorable quote, "I was born a Celtic supporter, I will die a Celtic supporter," he's letting people know that of course he cares about the club, and he's denying charges of complacency by telling you that over the last 18 months Celtic have spent £35 million. The problem is that Celtic have spent a lot of that money unwisely. Neil Lennon put his position across again, reaffirming that he, of course, has always been a Celtic supporter, and touching upon the fact that he felt COVID-19, the loss of fans, the people deprivation had hurt Celtic more than any others. I can't quite accept that, because you can have bad performances in a stadium that's full, as well as bad performances in a stadium that's empty. And for the fans, too many bad performances have taken place in a stadium that's empty. But I would defend Celtic's position not to have the AGM turn into a free-for-all. It's the last thing they need at the moment. They've got the cup final, the possibility of the quadruple treble, as you've said, Mark, and they've tried to conduct as dignified an AGM as possible. You will never, believe me, never satisfy all of the shareholders by what you say and the positions that you take. But yesterday, Celtic got through it and are looking for the team on the park not to let things down at the weekend.
Yeah. Murdo, what's your take on it? I mean, Hugh's covered a wee bit out there. What was your take? What was the key points? Did Celtic manage that AGM as well as they could?
I think the key point is what's happened on the pitch last week. 2 victories, because I think that's taken all the pressure off. I think that the board would be delighted. The Lille result, the Kilmarnock result, but more importantly, the change of the team, the changes in the team. I think that's a big thing, because I think so many of the fans now, they were getting so angry. No, it was a way up. It was mental. It went through a horrendous stage of what the supporters were doing at Celtic Park, and that can't happen again. What they've got to look at now, they've got something to look forward to, seeing this new team with 4 or 5 new players coming into the team, young boys coming in, getting a start and playing really well. So I think a lot of the supporters now are sitting back a wee bit and waiting for the cup final at the weekend, because if you win a cup final, it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at this time, Hugh, this time of the year, it's very unusual. You're playing. In the olden days, it was the League Cup at this time of the year.
Oh.
It's for a period of time, but now a Scottish Cup at this time of the year, and if you win the Scottish Cup, it's a fantastic achievement.
If it had been a normal AGM with people in, supporters who are shareholders would have gone to a microphone, they would have looked Peter Lawwell directly in the eye, and specific accusations, allegations, call it what you will, would have been made to the chief executive, and it could have been a long old day.
So do you think the Celtic board are lucky that we're in the situation we are in with lockdown, that people couldn't face them? You've been there, loads of AGMs throughout the years. You've sat there through turbulent times at Celtic. Do you think yesterday's would have been the most turbulent if
under the circumstances as they prevail at the moment? It would have been a very feisty meeting, I think.
Yeah.
But at the same time, where does this get anyone? I do not dispute people's right to hold an opinion and to state that they are shareholders. They have a piece of the action. But on top of what's been going on before and after games at Celtic Park, and given the circumstances of the cup final and the quadruple treble coming up against Hearts on Sunday, I don't think Celtic needed pandemonium at the AGM at this particular time.
So where does it all end? Where does all these protests end, Hugh, in your opinion? Now, the cup final is on Sunday. I mean, if Celtic go and win that convincingly, it's a quadruple treble. Does the protest end there? Is there a protest outside Hampden? Do they take it to the next home game and the next home game? Where is the end point?
We live in very peculiar times. For me, Neil Lennon at the moment is on a game-by-game basis. If he wins the cup and it's the quadruple treble, of course he's entitled to stand up and say, you must realise the significance of this achievement. And also, let's not forget that if Neil Lennon wins that, he completes the winning of a treble as Celtic manager.
Yeah.
Now, only Jock Stein, Martin O'Neill and Brendan Rodgers have done that. So Neil Lennon becomes only the 4th manager in 132 years of history to have done this. Mm-hmm. So he's perfectly entitled to stand up and feel proud of himself. However, this is football. If he loses the cup final, then there'll be further mayhem.
Yeah.
He's living on a game-by-game basis.
Murdo, what about Neil's comments at the AGM? I mean, he's obviously pleased to get the backing of the fans. The Celtic Trust protest at the weekend. I mean, looking at it, it looked like it went about its business the right way, cheered the players off the bus, but made their point and their feelings of the board. Neil Lennon would have been pleased about the welcome the players got rather than booed in. Well,
Neil's the same as at the board. The last 2 results came at the right time for him, because I think it's in the cup final. The cup final is so important for the club, absolutely so important. So I said here a week ago, Neil Lennon, he's not won a game in 12 matches or whatever it was at his title then. Now he's won 1.
Yeah. 2 and 12.
Then it goes to 2. No, it's 2 out of 2.
Yeah, 2 out of 2.
It's 1 2 out of 2. Yeah. And that's why Neil Lennon isn't out the club just now. Because of the club, the directors had just jumped in straight away and said, this is ridiculous. It's time for a change of management. They've backed him, and he's won. And we said at the time, he just needs 1 victory, and then it starts.
Yeah, and you think the Leo one was the one that kick-starts it?
Leo's kick-started it, the Kilmarnock game, then cup final.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic, going to a cup final. If you win the cup final, that makes it even better. It's not just a league game. It's fantastic winning the Scottish Cup.
Some silver.
And then it goes every league matches in the future.
They fall one after the other.
You just fall into place.
But you have to retain a sense of perspective. Lille was a breath of fresh air because of Ismail Soro and David Turnbull and Conor Hazard. However, it finished off a Europa League group in which Celtic finished bottom. And the Kilmarnock game was better, second half. But Celtic still finished the day 13 points behind Rangers. So everything has to be put in perspective. And the cup final, I cannot again state how unprecedented and unbelievable a quadruple treble would be. The other side of the coin, Mark, is that if Celtic lose the game, then the supporters will, and rightly so, be upset.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Celtic Trust and their protest on Sunday, Hugh. And we were seeing some of the pictures come in, and they're making their feelings known in what appears to be a balanced way, and constructive, possibly. You're a man that's been and seen protests before, been in the middle of them in 1994. We were just chatting before we came on air about that. I mean, tell us a wee bit about that protest compared to what we're seeing just now.
Remember, 1994, you're talking about the course of a club's history being altered. You're talking about families who had a Celtic dynasty, and eventually the supporters grew tired of the dynasty, found it to be unsatisfactory in the modern day. And Fergus McCann came over from North America. I remember on radio with Fergus being thrown out of Celtic Park and having to complete the phone in from the Radio Clyde Jeep, which was in the Celtic Park car park. And I remember the amazing atmosphere surrounding it all, with people pounding on the van and shouting their support for Fergus. And that whole period for me was about a positive revolution. The supporters were galvanised. They understood that Fergus McCann was going to improve the club. They got behind him. Now you're talking about a club who can justifiably say 9 titles in a row, umpteen trophies, the Invincibles, Brendan Rodgers, Neil Lennon taking over, on the cusp of the quadruple treble. But these are different times. These are social media driven times, apart from anything else. I believe that there should be collective responsibility on behalf of the principal shareholder, Dermot Desmond, the chief executive, Peter Lawwell, the chairman, Ian Bankier, the head of recruitment, Nicky Hammond, and the manager, Neil Lennon. I also believe that if things don't go right, don't go according to plan, and supporters are upset, there must be collective accountability on the part of the principal shareholder, the chief executive, the head of recruitment, the chairman, and the manager. Therefore, so long as people turn up and make their feelings known in a responsible and civilised fashion, I have no problem with that. When I watch players bust from Celtic Park to a safer area of Glasgow so that they can get their cars and go home from there, I do not regard that as responsible behaviour. The players need a constructive environment in which to work. Difficult times for these players. The last thing they need is a hostile environment created by their own fans.
Yeah. So no problem with how the Celtic Trust went about their business on Sunday. It seemed like they cheered the supporters, they cheered the players in, they staged their protest, and then by all accounts went home to watch a game. That's okay, yeah.
That for me, peaceful protest is a legitimate part of a civilised culture. However, throwing things at players' cars, whoever did it, I don't know who did it, and I'm not interested in who did it. But when players are subjected to that kind of behaviour and are then taken somewhere the week after for their own security,
Yeah, it's not a nice environment. I mean, I've told you before, the only one I got was after the St Mirren and Ross County Scottish Cup semi-final defeat, where fans, gathered round the bus when we arrived back at Celtic Park, and I'm talking about 10, 15 fans, and that was intimidating in itself, walking to your car. But to see hundreds of fans, and, you're right, it's not constructive.
No. Has it not been a build-up, though? You're talking about losing the St Mirren game. That was a kind of one-off game. It wasn't a horrendous run that Celtic were on up until that. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know, Murdo. I mean, in that St Mirren game, just to go back to that, there was a build-up, to be honest, under Tony Mowbray, that we were far behind Rangers. I think we were 11 points behind Rangers, and there was a bit of a build-up.
As much as that then?
Yeah, and that night, the result was obviously the tipping point. But Hugh's right. I think we're just in this era just now of social media, that news spreads so quickly, and it was done the wrong way. But Sunday, looked like it was done in the correct manner, and probably no problem with that.
When Murdo and Wim Jansen were brought together to stop 10 in a row, Murdo will recall it was a tumultuous season, and it contained matches where the support that Celtic got was incredible. But I do not recall at any time anything taking place before or after games that would have caused a negative environment. And the job of stopping 10 in a row is to the Celtic supporters as crucial as the job of stopping 10 in a row is to the Rangers supporters right now. But when Murdo and Wim were there was a constructive, non-hostile environment, and it resulted in success for Wim and Murdo.
Yeah, it's always helpful. Look, some of the comments that are coming in just now as we're watching John Flanagan there tell Murdo to get his boots at the loft. I don't think we're that desperate. I don't know, Murdo, what age are you? About 78? Davy McKendrick there, 10 league titles as player manager, and on the brink of only the fourth manager to win the treble. Everything else to the side on Sunday and give the man the honour he deserves. I mean, that is the feeling. I mean, Neil Lennon harshly criticised by large sections of the Celtic support, but on the brink of history. I mean, you think of the amount of Celtic managers throughout time, no matter what era you're managing or playing in, and who failed to win the treble. Neil Lennon can add his name to the list.
Of course. Listen, I would never take away from people who pay money to go to the games the right to voice their criticism. I remember standing on the trackside for Radio Clyde when Celtic unfurled the league flag after Murdo and Wim had done their job, and Fergus McCann was booed.
Incredible.
But say, I don't pay to go to football matches. It's what I do.
You're one of the lucky ones.
It's what I do for a living, and most of the people out there will tell you I do it very badly for a living, but that doesn't bother me
We don't think that, Hugh. Listen, okay, to sum it all up then, Hugh, Murdo, both of you, is there fresh blood needed on this Celtic board? Have the main characters taken them as far as they can go, been hugely successful, but football's ever changing? Is there someone else needed to come on? Just liven things up?
If that someone had lots of money, of course he'd be welcome.
Yeah.
With open arms. As he would be, or she would be, at any club in the land. With regard to Peter Lawwell, he's been very successful. He has overseen the most successful period in Celtic's history. And I think it's like a football manager. When things are not going well, he gets the scattergun treatment as well. But if there was fresh investment, financial investment, of course it'd be welcome. But I don't believe that it is necessary to throw the whole board and the whole structure of the club to the wall.
Yeah, it's quite hard to find fresh investment of that level in this current
especially
climate.
In Scotland. There's not many people with an awful lot of money want to go to Scotland to invest in a Scottish club. No, you down south, people with a lot of money all from all around the world will put in so much money in all these English clubs. But up here in Scotland, it doesn't really happen very often. And we've got an owner just now. It's over all the years he's been putting a lot of money into the club, but the fans have been getting behind there. Every game now, home game, 60,000 people. It's a fantastic amount of Celtic supporters turning up for all the games.
Correct.
But we're sitting here now at Christmas time and everything's all gloom and doom. Oh, that's not going to win 10 in a row and all that kind of... All these things can all change.
Yeah, and pretty quickly.
And the board will be looking at it just now, thinking it started.
The
change has started.
There's an element of be careful what you wish for about all of this. I would invite you to think back to what's happened at Rangers and at Hearts in particular over the last decade or so. So just be careful who you want to throw out and who you want to bring in.
Yeah. Look, more comments coming in. Let's see, what's this? Stephen McKendry, what do you pay for Hugh? Well, very nice. Far too much in my opinion. And let's see if we got another one. Yeah, McGraw, no point giving more money to the person who has already blown millions on dross. So, look, balanced opinions. I mean, 35 million, reported to being spent from 2019, was it? Till now, 35 million. Did we not talk?
Did we not say last week about the players that's coming into the club? If you're going to buy new players, they've got to be better than what was already at the club, and that's not been the case.
That's not been the case.
And we're sitting here now, 2 games after watching Sorrell playing and Davy Turnbull playing and the young goalkeeper Conor Hazard getting into the team. And you're looking at a wee freshness in there. And then you're looking at boys that's not costing an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
And yet, but Celtic are saying, or the board are saying, oh, we spent so much money. But again, you're looking at it.
It has to be in the right way.
Aye.
Of course. Yeah. And that's why McGrory's point's a good one. Is it time for a change in a management, even if the cup final's won, if you're going to invest more money in January to add to this 35 million? Again, it's going round about. I mean, it doesn't stop at the manager, does it? It goes recruitment and...
The club have already issued a statement in which they said, Mark, that progress would be reviewed in the new year. Mm-hmm. So in other words, they're putting everyone on notice here. What happens between now and the game against Rangers on the 2nd of January is important because it contains a cup final and league matches. Any of those league matches in which you fail to win, you've created a bigger problem for yourself.
Yeah.
The Rangers game, of course, will take care of itself, and then progress will be reviewed. Now, the board have come to that conclusion, that there comes a point in the new year where they have to assess whether the road that they are going down is the correct road or whether there has to be a turning in the road. It all comes down to results, plain and simple.
Yeah. Well, that is football for you, Hugh. And one man who has been watching results closely, big Celtic man. We've got him luckily live just now. John Higgins. How you doing, John?
All right, Mark. How's things?
Yeah, all good, John. 4 times world champion. More than 800 century breaks I've got down here. I was just saying at the start of the show, my intro says former world champion. Are you not always a world champion? The title not always stick with you?
No, I don't think so. I think I've
no.
10 or 11 years or something the last time I won it. But no, listen, it's something they can never take away from you, isn't it? So I've been very, very lucky to win it maybe more than once. So yeah, beyond my wildest achievements.
Well, you had a game last night, didn't you? A match last night. You won 4-2, was it? You're at the Grand Prix just now. How's things going? How's your preparations going?
It's the last month of that, I understand, Mark. Can you hear me okay, or do you need me to put headphones of that on, or is everything okay?
No, I can hear you. No, you're fine.
No, we've been playing for the last, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months down in the same arena. The Scottish Open, the Northern Ireland Open, the German Open.
Yeah.
I did see that. What's your feelings on that? Do you like going to different venues, or does it not bother you?
No, you like, obviously. I'm stuck in the same hotel room. It's like round day, but travelling back and forth back to Scotland, obviously you can't use the public transport. You're having to drive down, and then if you get the test before every tournament, and then touch wood, I've tested negative every time. So then you just get into the bubble and then you're playing away. It's not ideal, but the whole world's not ideal just now. So we've just got to take it as it comes. And luckily, the squad's still playing, and we're still been able to play and earn a living. Yeah.
When's the next match?
I play Thursday now. Thursday. I was one of the first games on last night, and then the rest of the tournament gets played out the next couple of days, and then I'm back on Thursday.
Right,
John.
On you go, Murdo.
I was watching the Scottish Open, and some of the ex-players were on the table, and they were talking about the changes, how quick the table is now. Everything's all changed, and some of the balls are not kind of spinning; they're just rolling out, and it's much more difficult to play the game.
Well, that way, Murdo. It's the cloths are a little bit better than they were maybe 20 odd years ago, but the pockets are smaller, so there's a bit of give and go that way. That it's maybe easier for the balls to open up a little bit more, and you can maybe do higher breaks than the older generation could do. But the pockets there, they play pretty tight, or maybe it's just that my eyes are going a little bit dodgy. Maybe that's the reason.
Listen, I can't believe that the pockets are a bit small. Listen, anybody watching in just now or listening in, listen, get your comments in for John, and if you get any questions that are readable, we'll fire them there. John, so what's it look like from now to Thursday? What do you actually do? I hear you've got a new cue. Are you constantly just practising with that? Does that make a difference?
I've just 2 days, Mark. My pal back in Scotland, Raymond Cohn, he used to play snooker. He wasn't a professional, but he played to a good level, and he just loved the game. So he went down to London for a couple of years, and he learned off one of the best cue makers down there. And then he came back to Scotland, and he's got his own business. So he knows what sort of spec I like in a cue. And I lost in the Scottish Open, and I was struggling a little bit in my game, and someone had done a little bit of work in my cue, and the top of my cue was a little bit smaller than what I normally like. So I just decided, Raymond says, look, I've got a piece of wood that I think I can make for you. It's a nice cue, and would you like to try it? I'll try and get it within a couple of days. I says, that'd be great, Raymond. So I come home for the Scottish Open. He gave me it on Saturday night, and then I had a day practicing Sunday, and then travelled down yesterday. So I've only played about a day with it, but no, it feels great. It feels great.
See, I'm fascinated about that. A new cue. I mean, a piece of wood here that I can make into a cue for you. I mean, it might sound stupid, but snooker players have different wood for their cues.
Aye, listen, there's some players. Stephen Hendry was the famous one. His cue was damaged coming back for a tournament in the Far East, and he probably was never the same player again. But his cue was...
Is that right?
Aye, that was like a £30 cue that I think his dad bought him at Christmas time.
You think he'd be able to play with it then?
No, he stuck with that all his career, and then he got new cues made for him, and they were probably better pieces of wood. But I think he was just so tuned into that piece of wood that he could never really get used to another cue again. Whereas the likes of myself, Mark, I've had about 4 or 5 cues over my career, and I think if I can get I know the height I like, I know the sort of measurements I like. And it doesn't take you long. It's like golfers. You see golfers that turn up at tournaments in their golf bags at the airports, and then they just get into their golf truck because the people there know all their measurements, and they rustle them up new irons and new clubs and new stiffness, and then they can go out and they can play. And that's roughly with snooker. If you can get a nice piece of wood and the guys know your measurements, it's pretty easy to get used to a new cue, I think. But
hey, speaking about the golf, John, I had new clubs that day we played. That's why I was all over the place. Remember down at Loch Lomond, I was awful that afternoon.
I was the same. No, I mean, me and you, I think we were dragging Tom Boyd and Bobby Petty down, but no.
No, it makes it worse when you're playing golf and you're playing with. You must have played with Boydie before. He can hit the ball a mile, but then they start trying to coach you, and just slow your swing down and just take it easy. And I'm raging, and John's here going, get this muppet hitting the ball in the water every 2 minutes.
I'm just laughing at John talking about the smaller pockets. Radio Clyde have been saying I've got small pockets for years.
That is quite true. John, all right, on to the subject in hand then. Celtic, obviously you would have been following what's going on quite closely. Look, take us back a your memories of being a Celtic fan and growing up a Celtic fan. Some of the occasions that you remember from your younger days.
Well, listen, you've got the guest Murdo in the studio there. He's gave me. I don't think I'll ever be able to repay him, but what he gave me in 1998 when he was Wim Janssen's assistant. That when we stopped 10 in a row, I can remember walking. I was walking by Murdo in the corridor, and he says, "Go in and congratulate the boys." And I was saying, "Oh, there's no way." He says, on you go. There's some champagne. The boys will give you some." And I walked into the dressing room as all the boys were celebrating, and that's an experience that it's just I'll just never forget as long as I live. Now when I went in to see the boys that stopped 10 in a row, it was a great memory, and I've got.
You remember that, Murdo?
Oh, it was wonderful, because what an achievement from John, and then to be on the pitch, and then when I say, and it was strange, John, because we were in the foyer just outside the dressing room, and there was hardly a soul there, just you and I together, and we walked into the dressing room, and then all the boys, they all started singing about John and champion and all that kind of thing.
Of course, you had the world title then, didn't you? You won the world title, so you cutting about with your trophy. Did Henrik ask for a photo with you? Did he? Did he speak to you actually?
I think so, but listen, it's funny how...
He doesn't speak to anybody, it's nothing against you.
It's funny how life changes. Like, I can remember playing a couple of years ago. I played in the charity football match, and I can remember getting in that day, and a lot of the Scandinavian players, that you had Mark Reaper and Harold Bratback and people, they must have been thinking, "Who's this guy coming into the dressing room?" But fast forward at 20 years, and I managed to have a beer with Harold and Mark Reaper after the Legends games, and they says that they quite liked watching the snooker. And they were asking me questions, and I was telling them that day that I was in the dressing room with them. And it just shows you how life changes. But no, a memory, as I said, I'll never be able to repay Murdo for that memory. It was amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. Listen, we've got a comment here from David McKendrick, just quickly. John, highest number of keepy-uppies. Mark, highest break on your snooker table. Well, I'll let you go first, John.
I think I'd be beating you, Mark. I was no bad at football.
I keep you uppies.
Aye, I could maybe do about 2 or 3.
What? Right, we'll get you on again. When I'm kitted out, I need my full Celtic kit and football boots on now before I do keep you uppies.
I can't do it.
No, highest break in snooker table. I mean, I had a wee kind of 8-foot snooker table, and I must have played in it about 8-9 times and then just binned it. Absolutely.
Funny, I was saying to my wife Mary the other night when I'm watching it, and I said, people don't realise how good the snooker players are, because you know you always have a wee shot at snooker when you walk into a hotel or something, and there's a snooker room, and you get in and you go and play snooker, and you'll maybe get a red and then a colour, and then you're that's about you. Do you know what I used
to, but I do know how good these guys are. I used to, when I was about 10, 11 year old, go down to Alexandra Parade. I've told you this before, John, and John used to go to the Masters there, it was called, was it? And used to practice in there. Used to just sit and watch them on the steps. Just watch them clear the table, and I'm just pinging balls about the place like I'm playing pool. It's fantastic to watch.
You kid on, you're just trying to hit the ball and all that kind of thing, and no pot them.
John, on to this season then with the Celtic team. What's your feelings and how things have went, and what they've kind of fell into over the last couple of weeks with the scenes outside and stuff like that?
No, the scenes out, I think, are disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful, especially in the present climate that we're in just now. And I know people say you can't stop people from protesting, but no, terrible what's happened, and maybe some of the abuse that Neil Lennon's taken a little bit. But I think he has maybe brought some of it on himself, maybe with some of the selections. But me personally, I've heard Hugh talk about it on Radio Clyde, and I'm the same opinion of him. It was the night after he lost in Europe, and he came out and he slated some of the players, and if they don't want to be there. And I was the opinion, well, if they don't want to be there, he should be bringing guys like Young, Turnbull and that in to play instead of the players. No, we don't know what players it was that he was obviously insinuating who it was that maybe don't want to be there. But I think he should have just binned the players and just says, right, I'm going to go with the players that want to be here. I know maybe the powers that be might be thinking sell-on value for these players that you've still got to play them to then maybe sell them in January. But I think the season's been too big a season to pander to maybe some of these players. I think you just get rid of them and then put them on the bench and then have players there that want to play for your team. That's what I would do. But listen, I'm not a football manager. Maybe yourself and Murdo would be better qualified to answer these sort of things, but that's what I would have done.
Public statements you have to be very careful about at this particular time, John, because, as you say, the night of the Ferencvaros game, Neil had an outburst and he couldn't quite bring it back. He tried to backtrack weeks after, but it didn't work. And then again, he said of David Turnbull this week that he knew he was a good player, but he didn't realise quite how good he was. Well, you're only encouraging people then, John, to say, why wasn't he in your team before this then? Because, weeks have gone by and people said, he's £3.5 million worth of talent. The fact that he's 21 is neither here nor there. It's not like he's getting a day off school to play for Celtic. He's able, and Celtic paid a lot of money for him. So I think it has taken too long to get him in the team.
Yeah. John, here's one for you coming in from Mark Todd. Just bring them up on screen. Now, don't want to put you on the spot here, but what's your team selection for the cup final? What would you go with? Would you go with the guys who have delivered this cup final, or would you go with this kind of newer, fresher look that's come in the last couple of games?
You've got to stick with this team. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, listen, I've heard maybe some of the abuse that maybe Scott Brown and that's taken lately off some fans. Now they forget what he's meant to the club, and he's a total present modern day hero for a lot of us. But that doesn't mean anything. You've got to go with the players that are in the team just now that are winning for you. And I'm sorry, that's what you've just got to do. That's the club's a bit bigger than any player, I'm afraid. Yeah,
so you would give young Sorrow his chance over Brown. You would, put Turnbull in there. Would you stick with the goalkeeper, Hazard?
100%.
Yeah.
Anytime I've seen Barkas play, I've just never seen him speak a word.
Make a save. I'm the same.
Aye.
I've never seen him.
See, that's the thing about Hazard, though. He's not had a save to make over the last two games.
Understand that, but do you not think, Murdo, with people that have been at the games, I've been hearing people talk that he is a shouter. He's been commanding maybe his defence at the back. He might be giving them another set of eyes. Guys like Duffy maybe a little bit more settled. You've got Big Julian coming back, and then you're putting Ayer to right back. I just never seen Barkas say a word to anyone. That's obviously, I suppose that's not great for your defence if you're goalies.
But you're right, the freshness at the back, because we spoke even before the Leo game last week. We had a chat about it, and I always felt Celtic are caught in the counter attack so many times by European sides. See, even at the Leo game, they were so strong at the back, and that made it much easier for Celtic to go and play up front and score goals. And then the Kilmarnock game at the weekend, even against Kilmarnock, Celtic weren't caught once at all with a counter-attack because they were solid at the back. And that's the way Celtic's got to do now. Make sure you don't lose goals, but you've got good players up front that can score goals. And just leave it to them, because the last two games, they've been a wee bit of steel about them. They're going in and they were battling away in the middle of the park. Turnbull, he's every set play, he's taking it. He's a great delivery of the ball, and he's making goals for the team.
You also have to factor in that in the pandemic, you've got a 16-man game on your hands now. Whatever team Neil Lennon picks to begin the match against Hearts, I think back to the St Johnstone game in the league, where eventually he brought on 5 substitutes, and it was 1 in time added on. Yes, the initial selection is important, but it's a 16-man game now, and there are 5 alternatives available to Neil Lennon. This is a Hearts side who will come in with a sense of grievance because they believe, or people around the club believe, Celtic forced the issue with regard to 9 in a row, and as an offshoot of that, Hearts were relegated, so they're going to come in with a grievance, and teams with a grievance are dangerous. But it is a 16-man game, and what starts the game will certainly not finish it.
It's a good point. John, just before we let you go then, I mean, prediction for Sunday, but off the back of that, can 10 in a row still be achieved, and is Neil Lennon that's still the right man to be in charge to take Celtic there?
I'll say 2-0 for Sunday. Neil Lennon, I've always loved him as a man that's been at Celtic. It's going to be the crunch on the 2nd of January. That's going to be the crunch. And my personal feeling is that he's got a better chance now going there if he can keep the same sort of team. Whereas if it was the same old team that's been played, I think Rangers had a number in the last few times we've played them. I think we could be giving them a different, I don't know, a different thing for them to think about. If you've got Turnbull in the middle, you've got Sorrell now closing things down. Turnbull's just always looking up, his head up, wanting to pass the ball forward, which is brilliant when you watch him. And I think we've got a better chance of going to Ibrox with the present team. And then if we can win at Ibrox, it's game on again. It's definitely game on again. But that's hopefully if we can win our games in hand. But the big one's going to be 2nd of January. That'll be the be all and end all. But then what happens then, Mark? That if we do lose that game, what do we do?
It's a long time, isn't it, to me, knowing that the league's over.
Who can you get in? That's going to be up to obviously the powers that be. But yeah, 2nd of January is the all and end all game. That's the crunch game for us.
Yeah, brilliant, John. Listen, thanks for joining us. What's happening Sunday? Will you be watching the game? Have you?
I hope not. Hopefully, I'm in the final down here.
You're in the final? Yes, aye.
Well, you can. You get an interval, do you know, in the final? Surely that'll be about the back of 2. You can nip in and see the score.
John will text you. You're all right.
John, thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good luck on Thursday. Hope we see you in the final Sunday, and we're celebrating 2 final wins. Thanks very much, John.
All the best, boys. Thank you. All the best.
Cheers. Thank you. Brilliant, John Higgins, an actual true legend of Scottish sport, not just a Celtic or Scottish journalism.
Even won Mr. and Mrs. on the telly.
Did he?
Yeah.
When?
Well, years ago, but he won it anyway.
We should have asked him about that.
Him and his wife won Mr. and Mrs.
Well, I didn't know that. I would have asked him about that if I knew that. But anyway,
he's still there.
He's just cut off now. Look, we're touching it there. Look, the cup final. Let's finish on that, because I think it's been not brushed under the carpet, but because of what's went on, this kind of terrible European campaign, the quadruple treble could be done on Sunday. It's a huge game. I don't know if it's because it's in December. It seems a bit flat. I always loved the build up.
Was it not all about
the Scottish Cup build up in May, the week leading up to it?
People weren't talking about it though. Do you know what I mean? The Scottish Cup finals getting played in December.
It's weird.
And you weren't talking about it, that there was all the talk was how Rangers were playing, how Celtic were playing, the points and all that kind of thing. Nothing to do with the Scottish Cup. And now you're thinking, it's a Scottish Cup final.
It's upon us.
It's a fantastic
it's a chance to have major silverware at a time that's probably needed most for Celtic, something to cheer about rather than groan about. Murdo, we're touching that there with John. What's your starting team then? I asked John.
Starting team.
Well, do you stick the same, or do you go the guy that got them at the cup final?
No, I think you've got to go with the boys that's been playing the last couple of games. Mm-hmm. I think you've got to look at them, because Celtic looked as if they were working harder to get the ball back. They looked as if they were better organised as well. And, you've got Ira at right back, but he still looks more comfortable there than Frimpong playing in that area, because Frimpong's always got the full length of the park, but there's always a big space there, and that's why the other teams can counter-attack. Whereas now Aya, he's the kind of back four are staying there. Greg Taylor, I thought, played well at the weekend, but I think Laxalt has been better.
You think so?
Aye.
See, I disagree with you on that.
Do you? Aye.
I think Greg Taylor should play.
Aye. I thought he played really well at the weekend, but Laxalt, I think he's been possibly Celtic's best player in the last half a dozen games, even when the bad performances.
So you go Laxalt and the rest. And the rest the same.
The two centre backs, and you're looking at Frimpong, Sorrow, McGregor, Elanusi, Turnbull off Edward. And I think that's what you're looking at.
Hugh, on the other side, Hearts, I mean, they'll be determined to win the game. They'll probably see this as their best chance to beat Celtic in a cup final, even though they ran them close last time. But Craig Gordon in goal. There's no another guy who needs motivated like him to beat Celtic in the cup final after what happened.
I think, to be perfectly frank, Celtic made a mess of that. The fact that we're discussing Conor Hazard. Now, Conor Hazard, may he play, may he have a great career. He made his debut against Lille. His debut. And Kilmarnock was his second game. So to be having your first team game for Celtic on a day when a quadruple treble is at stake is remarkable. I'll leave that one to Neil Lennon. I cannot get round the Scott Brown question at the moment. This is the man who has been, for me, the best captain since Billy McNeil, and I don't say that lightly. Is he actually going to start the match, Neil Lennon, without Scott Brown? And I don't say that because Scott once threatened to throw me in Loch Lomond.
A few people would pay to see that.
Yeah.
Tune into this podcast.
But for Paul Hartley, they might have seen it. But I think that's the one question that will be on Neil Lennon's mind between now and Sunday.
Yeah. It's it's a tough position for Neil to be in. Because I don't know which way he'll go.
By the way, Connor's had a save to make.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The half chance against Kilmarnock, there was at the centre back, and he hit it straight at his hands. But he's not had a kind of a stretched.
Well, he must be in there for a reason. I said a few days ago that he's not some guy that's just walked off the street. Neil sees him in training, competing with the other two, and must have thought, yes, this guy's due a shot. Now, the interesting thing with Hearts is as well, they'll bear a grudge, and this is the first time the clubs have met after the carry-on that went on in the summer, with the league being called and relegated. Craig Levine's been pretty vocal in that, Hughes, and alluded to that.
Yeah, he has come out directly and said that it was Celtic that forced the issue, and therefore part of the issue was to relegate Hearts as well as make Celtic champions. But he's not involved anymore, Craig. So these Hearts players will go out there. They're good players. They're
a good squad, you're right.
Liam Boyce, Stephen Naismith.
Craig Gordon.
So that Christoph Berra, established defender there.
Andy Halliday. Andy Halliday can play, can't he?
Yeah, he can.
Yeah.
People will say, Andy scored 6 goals in the last game, but it was only Queen of the South. However, Celtic are not in a position to throw stones, having gone out of the Betfred Cup to Ross County, who are bottom of the league at the moment. So, Hearts, it's been a recurring theme, Mark, about no people in the grounds and how bad that is and how distressing a situation that is. Particularly so this Sunday. I cannot think there are dramas all over that park. Whether it's with regard to Celtic's team selection, Craig Gordon playing against Celtic, the behind-the-scenes conflict about did Celtic contribute towards Hearts getting relegated. There's drama all over the park, off the park, and nobody there to see it. It's a crying shame.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one and a big week ahead for Celtic. I personally think Neil Lennon will relish the fact that he's got a full week's preparation this week instead of 2 days recovery straight into a Europa League game. That may serve Celtic well, but it'll be a fascinating game anyway come Sunday. Guys, give us your predictions before we go. Murdo?
3-1.
3-1 Celtic. Hugh?
Well, I was going to say 3-1, so...
you can go 3-1 if you want.
Yeah, 3-1.
3-1. Okay, well, there you go. 2 convincing ones for
Celtic.
You,
Mark?
For me, I think Celtic will win. I think it'll be 2-0. I think they looked comfortable against Kilmarnock. I know they didn't threaten much, but I think once you get one clean sheet, the confidence you take from it alone is huge. And I think they may build on that on Sunday and get another one.
It's very decent of you, knowing that you and I have worked in Radio Clyde for a long time now. Very decent of you to give me a chance at a prediction, knowing that it's not my forte.
I know. Listen, it's ruined for all the Celtic fans listening to this. Do not put that on your cutum, that's for sure. Hugh's prediction. Guys, Thanks once again, Murdo, for joining us. Hugh, thank you for joining us. Always good to hear from you. And thanks to John Higgins for tuning in. Thanks to everybody for listening. And also thanks to our sponsors, First Star Legends Gin, Social Recluse, and First Class Transfers. Join us again next week, where hopefully we'll be talking about a quadruple treble. Speak to you then.